They repeat the accusation like a slogan. They chant it in headlines. They whisper it in classrooms. They broadcast it across screens, again and again and again. They say Sharia is barbaric because it punishes theft with amputation, because it allows the death penalty for rape, because it lashes those who make false accusations, because it crushes violent banditry with the harshest penalties. That is the charge. That is the accusation. That is the claim. That is the narrative. That is the weapon. But slogans are not arguments. Noise is not evidence. Emotion is not justice. Amputation for theft, yes. Decisively, no excuses. I was 12, school bag on my shoulders, walking home like any other day. Then it happened, right in front of me. 2 daily wage laborers stood by the roadside, one young, one old. Both had just received their wages. Hard-earned money, sweat turned into survival. They were counting it, carefully, quietly. And in a flash, it was gone. The young man snatched the bundle of cash from the old man's hands and ran, fast, ruthless. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew the old man could never catch him. The old man chased, desperate, breathless, helpless. For a few moments he tried, then he stopped, because he knew it was impossible. His wages were gone, his efforts stolen, his survival ripped from his hands in seconds, and I stood there, frozen, shocked, just a 12-year-old girl with a school bag on her shoulders, powerless to stop it. But that moment burned into my mind, because in that moment I saw injustice, raw, shameless, deliberate. A strong man stealing from a weaker one, knowing he would escape, knowing there would be no consequence. And that was the moment the wisdom behind severe punishment became real to me. Not as an idea, not as an argument, as protection. Because when theft is easy, the weak suffer first. The old suffer first. The powerless suffer first. And years later, I understood why a law would draw a line so severe that thieves fear crossing it at all. But not for hunger, not for poverty, not for desperation, only for deliberate, calculated theft, and every condition is met. This is precision. This is deterrence carved into law. A line drawn so clearly that even the powerful tremble before crossing it. Justice stands blind to status, equal, immovable, absolute. Now they point to another law and demand an answer. Death penalty for rape? Yes, absolutely, without mercy. Ask the victim, ask the parents, ask the mother who watched her child return shattered, body violated, mind broken, soul scarred in ways no words can repair. Ask the father who burns inside, rage choking his breath, wishing in his raw human pain he could strike back at the man who destroyed his child. The victim lives with fear, shame, and trauma every day. Sleep stolen, trust broken, life fragmented. Those emotions are real, explosive, uncontrollable. Islam does not punish the innocent. It places the full weight of guilt on the rapist. It makes an example of the perpetrator, not the victim. In such a society, predators would live in fear, shame, sleepless nights, haunted by the certainty of justice. But justice cannot be left to rage. Society cannot survive on revenge in the streets. So the law steps in, not to fuel anger, but to contain it, to acknowledge the depth of that suffering, physical, emotional, mental, and answer it with uncompromising justice. A maximum penalty that leaves no shelter for the one who commits such devastation, not because life is cheap, but because the crime destroys lives. And because when the consequence stands at its highest, unyielding and unmistakable, it forces the would-be predator to stop, to hesitate, to think again and again before committing an act that would ruin another human being forever. Another headline, another claim meant to shock. Adultery by a married person, stoning to death, the severest punishment, yes, without hesitation. Not because desire exists, because betrayal destroys lives. This is not a slip, not a momentary weakness. It is a deliberate, conscious violation, a willful choice to break trust, to destroy a bond that is sacred. They have a spouse, a lawful partner, a legitimate outlet for their desires, and still they betray, intentional, calculated, unforgivable. And if desire truly drives them, then why not choose what is lawful? Why not marry the woman they seek? The path is not closed. It was never forbidden. Within the law, a man is permitted more than one wife. But only under the condition of strict justice, that he must treat them fairly in time, maintenance and responsibility. If he fears he cannot be just between them, then he should not marry more than one. So why abandon the lawful path, the path that demands accountability, and instead choose secrecy, deception, and betrayal? Why choose what is forbidden when what is permitted still preserves dignity, structure, and truth? Because adultery is not just desire, it is escape from responsibility. It is indulgence without consequence, or the attempt to have it so. And when such choices spread, dignity erodes, trust disappears, society itself begins to rot from within. The spouse wakes to devastation, trust shattered, love broken, security gone. Marriage crumbles, a home turns into ruins. Children grow up wounded, innocent witnesses to a secret betrayal. Confusion, fear and shame become their inheritance. The family they relied on, broken. The stability they needed, gone. This is not a private mistake. It is a calculated attack on trust, on lineage, on family itself. The punishment is severe because the harm is catastrophic, and it makes betrayal impossible to risk. Anyone tempted sees destruction, shame, and death waiting, a consequence so absolute that the crime dies in thought before it is ever acted upon. Strict proof ensures justice is deliberate, measured, unavoidable.
Silence in the court!
It is not cruelty. It is protection for the betrayed, for the children, for society. And still, the accusations continue. Unlawful intimate relations outside marriage, 100 lashes, the Quranic command. Yes, unflinchingly, without doubt. Not because intimacy exists, because responsibility must exist. This is not just about two people, not just a private moment. Ask the harder questions. What follows when consequences take form? Who carries the burden? Who raises the child? Who answers when relationships break and disappear? Without structure, responsibility becomes optional. Promises fade, commitments vanish, children pay the price for adult impulses. And when desire is left unchecked, when instinct alone is followed, what remains is no longer human restraint, but something far more primitive. These are not elevated choices. They are impulses, raw, ungoverned, animalistic. In such a world, boundaries dissolve. One goes to another, then another, without limit, without accountability, without permanence. That is the way of animals, where no bond is sacred, no commitment binding, no responsibility lasting. But human beings were not meant to live that way. They were given dignity, given intellect, given the ability to choose restraint over impulse, responsibility over desire. So why descend from discipline to disorder, from honor to instinct? Because when a society embraces impulse over responsibility, it does not remain neutral. It declines, not into freedom, but into fragmentation. And soon, the consequences become visible, not in theory, but in reality. Not stray animals in the streets, but stray children, unclaimed, unprotected, uncertain of belonging, children born into instability, raised without structure, searching for identity in a world that never secured it for them. One act may seem harmless, one moment may look small, but repeated across society, it becomes a pattern. Temporary bonds multiply, broken ties become normal, stability begins to collapse, quietly, steadily. This law does not chase individuals, it draws a boundary, clear, visible, unmistakable, and even then, proof is nearly impossible without confession. Not rumors, not suspicion, only certainty. So, the punishment stands, not as routine violence, but as deterrence, a line so firm that people think before crossing it, pause before acting, and measure consequences before desire. Then comes another accusation, one that destroys silently. Falsely accuse someone of sexual immorality? 80 lashes, the Quran's prescription. Yes, unequivocally, no retreat. Because slander is not minor, it does not fade quietly, it destroys lives. This is not idle gossip, this is a weapon, a calculated strike at innocence, a deliberate assault on honor. The victim suffers openly, society turns against them, blame falls where it does not belong, shame crushes their spirit, trust evaporates, their world becomes hostile and lonely. Every false word spreads destruction, every lie leaves scars that do not heal. The punishment is unflinching, so that no one tempted to speak falsely dares to act, knowing the consequences immediate, severe, and unavoidable. Justice strikes hard because the harm is real, visible, and relentless. And finally, the accusation that touches the safety of society itself. Highway robbery, armed banditry, terror on the roads. The severest punishments stand: execution, crucifixion, amputation of opposite limbs, or exile and imprisonment. No ambiguity, no softness for organized violence. Picture it. A family rushing a sick loved one from one city to another, fear already choking the air, money already scarce, hope hanging by a thread, the patient suffering, the family praying, every second precious. And then armed men appear. They block the road, they take the money, they leave the family stranded, helpless, terrified, desperate. A life already fragile, now pushed closer to death by criminals who feel no fear of consequence. This is not theft. This is terror. Terror forced onto the innocent. Fear injected into society's veins. No society survives when roads become hunting grounds and civilians become prey. So the law confronts it, head-on, unapologetically. The punishments are severe because the crime is severe. A deterrence so overwhelming that organized criminals think twice, again and again, before turning roads into battlefields. Not romance, not rebellion. Relentless violence met with relentless justice. A society does not collapse from strong laws. It collapses when crime becomes safe, when victims become silent, when criminals grow fearless. And that is the question left standing, unavoidable, unanswered by slogans. Which is more brutal, a law that terrifies criminals, or a system that leaves the weak defenseless? That is the corner the argument reaches. No further, no drift, no disguise. That is where words lose their comfort, where slogans stop carrying weight, where rhetoric runs out of road. And then there is a shift from what is said to what is enforced, from what is claimed to what is tested, from abstraction to consequence. That is where reality begins.